Yo, what's going on, guys? It's the Draft Nerd, and today we're going to be doing a Cleveland Browns 7-round mock draft. Now, looking at their picks before we start, they have the second overall pick, they have a second round pick, two third round picks, a fourth round pick. They don't have a fifth round pick, followed by four sixth round picks, and then finally a seventh round pick. I think it's like the second to last pick in the draft. So they got a lot of draft picks. They're missing a fifth round pick, but they got two thirds. I think we can fix this team, or at least improve them more than they did in free agency. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so before we start this draft, I'm going to take a look at their depth chart and look at their new signings, what their weaknesses are in this depth chart, and how we're going to go about fixing it. And starting off, the biggest eyesore is at the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett. Deshaun Watson slated as a starter in this depth chart setup, but realistically, I highly doubt the Browns are even going to want Deshaun Watson in the building next year. You know, he had a setback with his injury. I don't even know if he's, healthy or anything, but I highly doubt they're going to play Deshaun Watson. I think they're just waiting for his contract to run out so they can release him. So really all they have is Kenny Pickett. Do you want Kenny Pickett to be your starter? Probably not. We're going to look to get some competition in there, whether that's going to be with our first round pick and maybe get a Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, or if we wait till day 2 of the draft and get a guy like Will Howard, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, someone like that in day 2. That's undecided yet, but we definitely need to get a quarterback in this draft at some point early in the draft. Looking at this offensive line, we're good at tight end. David Njoku is a really, really good tight end. We could maybe look to get a receiving type of tight end 2, so that way Blake Whiteheart can be that blocking tight end 2. But realistically, the Browns were 23rd in 12 personnel last year, so it's not like they're trotting out 2 tight ends very often anyways. So maybe not the biggest need. Maybe with one of our 4 6th round picks, we can get a receiving tight end, but that's not the biggest need in the world at all. Another big need is DeJuan Jones playing left tackle. That's not very sexy at all. He played a little bit of left tackle last year. Wasn't the best by any means. Really, he's a right tackle. He played all right tackle his rookie season 2 years ago, and then he kind of split time between right tackle and left tackle last year. Do you really want DeJuan Jones playing 17 games at left tackle next year? Probably not. Are we going to be able to fix that in the draft? Maybe, but no promises. Joel Bitonio considered retiring. He's probably back for one more year at most. And so I really like the signing of Tevin Jenkins. Probably going to be a depth guy if someone goes down, but he could be the replacement for Bitonio, in a year or two. But overall, I think we need to get someone on the interior of this offensive line, because Bitonio, Posick, I think is how you pronounce it, and Wyatt Teller, they're all old offensive linemen, so we're going to have to inject some youth into this interior offensive line for sure in this draft. They got guys waiting in the wings like a Zach Zinter, Luke Whippler, guys like that too, so maybe just adding another guy in there could be pretty beneficial for us. And then looking at the receiving core, it's not the best by any means. Jerry Jeudy, when Jameis Winston was quarterback, looked really good for the Browns last year. Cedric Tillman, I'm a big fan of Cedric Tillman. I think he's going to have a breakout this year and be a really good X receiver for him. But then when you look at that third receiver, is it a Michael Woods, a Jamari Thrash, David Bell, DeAndre Carter? These guys aren't wide receiver 3 material, in my opinion. So I would really like to get either a Z or slot receiver. Jerry Jeudy kind of split time. He can play slot receiver. I believe he had, 35% slot snaps last year, which, is a good amount. He can play slot, he can play outside. I think he's a bit versatile. Cedric Tillman's an outside guy for sure. He's going to be the guy that breaks press coverage and be that X receiver. So we could look for a Z receiver or a slot receiver in the draft. It doesn't really matter since Jerry Jeudy is so versatile and where he can line up. And that's about it on the offense, at least. A lot of holes. A lot of this draft is probably going to be on the offense. But moving on to the defense here, they re-signed Myles Garrett to a massive contract, like $40 million a year. So he's here to stay for the long haul. But opposite of him, who do we have? We have Isaiah McGuire. They signed Joe Tryon Shoyinka in free agency, who I think is a really good rotational guy. But I could definitely see the Browns going and trying to get a bona fide edge 2 to go alongside Myles Garrett. Are we going to be able to find one? We'll see. And then they got Shelby Harris, and then they newly signed Malik Collins from San Francisco. 2 solid guys, 2 old guys. I really like Mike Hall Jr. Out of Ohio State. He hasn't gotten much playing time in the NFL yet, but I do think he could be a really good backup this year and could probably fill into one of these defensive tackle slots in the next year or two. So we could look to get another depth guy who can just inject some youth into that defensive line, at least interior defensive line. And then looking at the linebacking core, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, He had a neck injury. We just got news about a month ago that he's up in the air on if he's going to be healthy for training camp. With neck injuries, it's so complicated on when a player can return or if he can even return at all. So JOK, really good season last year before he got injured. Really young player too. I believe he's like 24 maybe. So he's, if healthy, part of their future. But do you want a linebacker who's got neck problems? Being your linebacker of the future? Maybe not. Jordan Hicks is a really good Mike linebacker, but how long is he going to be playing? I believe he's he's 33 years old, so he's not going to be part of their long-term future. So we could look to get a Mike linebacker, because JOK is not really a Mike linebacker, he's a weak side linebacker. So we could look to do that for sure. They signed Jerome Baker, who's going to be good depth for him as well, just in case. I guess it's insurance, just in case JOK isn't healthy to start the season. And then Mohamed Diabate is also a good, depth guy. I wouldn't want him starting by any means. And then looking at the secondary, Denzel Ward, a stud. A little bit of injury concerns, but overall a really good cornerback. But then you get into Martin Emerson, who had a down year last year for sure. And then Greg Newsome. I think Greg Newsome is definitely a starter in this league. I think the main problem is Martin Emerson. Do you want to replace Martin Emerson? Me personally, I'm going to look to do that in this draft. Maybe not with the first, second round pick, but definitely, in the third, fourth round of the draft, I'm going to look to get a cornerback to replace Martin Emerson. I think Greg Newsome's really versatile. He could play in the nickel, or he could be an outside guy. So depending on who's on our draft board in, rounds 3 and 4, that'll kind of depend on where Greg Newsome will play. Because I think he's a good outside corner, and I think he's a solid nickel corner as well. So, that versatility gives us a lot of options in the draft as well. And then looking at safety, Grant Delpit, Ronnie Hickman, 2 really solid safeties. I don't think that's going to be a need much at all in this draft. So I've come up with 9 needs for this team, and I believe we have 10 picks. And these needs are, in not really any order, is quarterback, a receiver, a running back, a second edge rusher, a cornerback 2, a depth defensive tackle, a depth linebacker, a tight end 2, a receiving tight end 2 more specifically, and then depth at the guard position. So those are our needs, and we're going to look to fill this in this draft. So without further ado, let's actually start this draft. Alright, so picking at number 2 here, obviously the Titans took Cam Ward. Is it a possibility they maybe take Abdul Carter? That's a possibility. Obviously not in this simulation that happened, but it could definitely be possible that the Browns can pick between a Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. But since Cam Ward's off the board, I think it really comes down to 3 players: Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Shedeur Sanders. Do you want to pair up an edge rusher alongside Myles Garrett and have one of the best edge rushing tandems in the NFL? That's very, very enticing here. The only thing that stops you from doing that is they brought in a guy like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and they try to shore up that edge rushing group. So is that their biggest need? Probably not. A guy like Travis Hunter, who could fill 2 needs that I have for the Browns, which is a Z receiver / slot receiver, and then a cornerback 2. Travis Hunter would come in and be their wide receiver 1 and cornerback 1 or 2, depending on how you view Denzel Ward. It just comes down to if the Browns are going to let him play both ways, but he's definitely an option here for sure. He could be, if they want to play him at receiver, he could be the receiver 1. If they want to play him at cornerback, you got 2 really good outside corners with Denzel Ward and Travis Hunter. Or we can go with Shedeur Sanders, who is ranked 46th, but let's be honest, Shedeur Sanders is definitely an option here at number 2 overall. And if I was, fully in charge of the Browns, I probably wouldn't go with Shedeur Sanders. I would probably go with either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. But in this 7-round mock draft, I'm going to try to be a little bit predictive in what I think will happen, not necessarily what I would 100% do. And with that being said, I think the Browns are likely to take a Shedeur Sanders here. And I know a lot of Browns fans watching this video might not like that, but I do think it's a very, very real possibility. And in my opinion, I think it's about a 60 to maybe even a 70% chance that they do take a Shedeur Sanders here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a Shedeur Sanders, and then in round 2 of this draft, hope that a good receiver slips through into the second round, because I believe we have, what do we have? I think it's the top pick in the second round. Yeah, we have the top pick in the second round. So we're going to hope that a receiver falls, maybe a Matthew Golden, a Luther Burden maybe. If not, we can look to get an edge rusher, a cornerback. So we have options, maybe even a running back if a guy like a Martin Hampton falls. So we definitely have options in the second round, but we're going to go with Shedeur Sanders here to compete with Kenny Pickett to be the starter day 1. So what we're looking for right now is to see if there goes Matthew Golden. I'm hoping that a Luther Burden slips to us. If not, maybe an Amari Hampton. I haven't seen if he went yet. Emeka Egbuka just went off the board. There goes Amari Hampton. Let's hope Luther Burden doesn't go. And there we go. We got Luther Burden. That's definitely an option here. I'm not going to 100% pick him as of right now, but that is a very enticing option here at the top of the second round. We're going to look at edge rusher here, see if anyone slipped through the cracks. A Nick Scoreton's a really good player here at 33. Same with the Landon Jackson, Princely Umamielen. Like, these are really good players. We're going to look at running back, although I think the two top guys fell. So, yeah, I don't think running back's going to be an option here at the top of the second round. We could look to go cornerback. Let's see what cornerbacks are still on the board. Trey Amos, Maxwell Harrison, Siobhan Revelle. Really, really good players. But I don't think we can pass up on a Luther Burden. You know, do I fully think he'll drop to the second round here? I think it's possible. There's reports out that, you know, NFL teams are a little bit scared of his production. Last year, he had, 61 receptions, only 676 yards. And that was coming off of a 1,200-yard season in 2023. So, you know, me personally, I think it was more of a quarterback situation there in Missouri than it was a Luther Burden problem. But NFL teams supposedly are a little bit skeptical on his, consistency. So I could see him falling here. But if he does fall here to the Browns at 33, I think they would run to the podium and send this pick in to get a Luther Burden to pair him alongside with Shedeur Sanders. So we're going to go with Luther Burden here out of Missouri. Now what we're looking for is maybe a running back, an edge rusher, or a cornerback would be what we're looking for right here. You know, maybe I was going to say a Trey Amos. There goes Siobhan Revelle. Looks like cornerbacks are going off the board here. We could pause and make a trade, but I think we're going to stay put here. All right. Now let's see who is on the board here. Let's look at cornerback, and Benjamin Morrison's on the board here. I was hoping for Darian Porter. I don't know where he went. I didn't quite see where he went. Yeah, he went at 58 to the Texans. But here at 67, Benjamin Morrison is a very solid option here. We're also going to look at edge rusher again, just to do our due diligence. Josiah Stewart is very interesting. That is very, very tempting. Same with the Jordan Burch as well. I think he's a really good player. We're going to look at defensive tackle depth. Again, this isn't the biggest need, so we probably won't take one here, but CJ West is interesting. Same with Alfred Collins, but I don't think we're going to go with that right now. Let's look at linebacker. You know, Demetrius Knight is still here at 67. Now that is tempting. That is for sure tempting. 6'2", 245. I think he's big enough to play a Mike linebacking role alongside with JOK as a weak side linebacker, or vice versa. I think it's interchangeable if we do go with a Demetrius Knight. But Benjamin Morrison as well, that's very tempting too. What do I think the biggest need is? You know, they brought in Jerome Baker in free agency. You know, JOK supposedly is going to be ready. Jordan Hicks is there as well to be the Mike linebacker right now. I think the bigger need is Benjamin Morrison here. I know he's got hip injury concerns, and, you know, I suppose everything's going to check out if I had to guess. I mean, I don't think he would have opted in to enter the draft if he wasn't confident in his hip. So having him fall here to 67 is very enticing. I'm between Benjamin Morrison and Demetrius Knight. We also need a running back too. Dylan Sampson, RJ Harvey are really good options here as well, but I like the depth of this running back class a little bit too much to take one here at 67. And if we look, we got 2 third-round picks as well to try to figure this out. So I think we're going to pass on running back at least with this first third-round pick. And do I want to take the chance? Ideally, what I would do here is take a Demetrius Knight here and hope and pray that a Benjamin Morrison falls. But I don't know if I can take that chance here. If we look at cornerback, who else is on the board? Dorian Strong is a good option here. Jacob Parrish, he's a feisty man coverage corner, which is exactly what we could use. The Browns do run a lot of man coverage. Have Jacob Parrish be the slot receiver, and then again move Greg Newsome into back outside to where I think he's a little bit better at, and then have a Martin Emerson be a depth guy. I could see that being a good option here, and that would allow us to take a Demetrius Knight. Let me look at Jerome Baker's contract right quick. All right, so looking at what Jerome Baker's contract was, I couldn't find it. I mean, it said it was a zero-year contract for $0. I'm not sure what the contract details are, but I would assume it's only a 1 to 2 year deal. So I think I'm gonna pass on Demetrius Knight, even though that pains me, and I'm gonna go with Benjamin Morrison here. I think we're gonna do that. He's solid in man coverage as well, which is what we need. We're gonna go with Benjamin Morrison here. Now let's hope Demetrius Knight maybe falls. We could trade too. Oh, there he goes just now. I was so close to pausing to try to draft Demetrius Knight. All right, that sucks, but we'll keep it pushing. Let's see who falls here to 94. Alright, so what we need now is, let's quickly look at what we've gone so far. We went Shedeur Sanders in the first round, Luther Bernenfeld was in the second round, and then we took Benjamin Morrison with our first of 2 third-round picks. So now we're going to look for maybe an edge rusher, running back, defensive tackle, linebacker, tight end, or guard depth. And with the Wyatt Milum here on the board, that's very, very intriguing. We can also look to go running back here. Devin Neal, I'm a huge fan of Devin Neal. I love him to death, but I also really like Bashaw Tutin here at 132. I think he could fall to us with our 4th round pick. So I'm gonna see if we can go elsewhere here. Man, Wyatt Milum's just staring me in the face here. I love that. Let's look at linebacker again, see if there's anyone here we're willing to take. I like these guys a lot, but after Demetrius Knight went off the board, I think we can pass on linebacker for now. Tight end 2, I'm not even going to look at because I don't think that's our biggest need right now. We could look at guard as well. So let's look at offensive line here. Tate Ratledge is on the board here, or we could go with a Wyatt Milum. Maybe even a Charles Grant. Charles Grant played tackle at William & Mary. Probably will project to more of a guard player, but he has tackle experience. So that wouldn't fix the DeJuan Jones starting at left tackle problem, and I don't think we're going to be able to fix that for this season at least. But, a guy like Wyatt Milum played a lot of left tackle, projects to guard, but, they would probably try him out at left tackle over a guy like DeJuan Jones. So we're going to go with Wyatt Milum here because I think he could project as a guard. And again, looking back at the Browns depth chart, probably not going to have Joel Bitonio for more than 1 season. Wyatt Teller's also getting up there in age, so they need to inject some youth into that interior offensive line. With a guy like Wyatt Milum, he could also compete at left tackle or even right tackle with Jack Conklin too. So we're going to go with Wyatt Milum here to test him at tackle, but if not, inject some youth into that guard position. I like that pick a lot. And now we got our 4th round pick here, and if we look again, we don't have a 5th round pick, so this is probably the last fringe starter we can get in this draft. The rest of the the 6th round picks and the 7th round pick are probably going to be more depth picks, so we got to choose this carefully. And the first thing I'm going to look at is running back. Damian Martinez, Jaden Blue, and Bashaw Tutin are definitely options here at running back. Again, Pierre Strong and Jerome Ford are not, going to cut it. I would love to go with a Harold Fannin here to be that receiving tight end 2 that I was talking about, but I don't think that would be very smart to do here. Depth linebacker, we also need again. I like Barrett Carter a lot. I don't think he's a Mike. Again, we're kind of looking for a Mike linebacker. I think you got Cody Lindenberg. He's 6'3", 240. I think he's a bit of a bigger guy that could play Mike. Again, hopefully he could fall to one of our 6th round picks. That's what we're going to bank on probably. I think we got to go with an edge rusher here. Again, so looking back, we got Shedeur Sanders, Luther Burnham, Benjamin Morrison, and Wyatt Milum. And we're going to... Oh, man. I'm scared to not take a running back here, though. So we're going to pass on running back and hope to get one in the 6th round. We're going to go with... I think we might go with Cameron Williams here. Like I said, DeJuan Jones, iffy at left tackle. Cameron Williams is a right tackle, so I'm not going to say he's going to replace him necessarily, but Jack Conklin's 30. So 4 out of the 5 Browns starting offensive linemen are going to be 30 years old at the start of the next season, so I think it's possible that we can double dip at offensive line. Again, Wyatt Milum can be a guard, but can also test out at tackle, and then we can go with a Cameron Williams to be a tackle of the future as well. We're going to go with Cameron Williams here. Maybe a controversial pick there, but I think it was a smart idea. Now we're going to look to go with running back. There goes Damian Martinez. I'm pausing this as soon as one of the other running backs go. Okay, it looks like we might be odd. There goes Bashaw Tutin. We're going to stop it here. All right, so we're going to look to trade with the Baltimore Ravens. I know it's a bit of an inter-division trade, but in the 4th round, this stuff happens. I know a lot of people frown upon it, but it happens this late in the draft. So we're going to try to go with 129. We're going to trade 179 and 192. I think that's a good enough deal. We're just going to force the trade, and we are going to go with a Jaden Blue here. Is that the most sexy pick to get in this running back room? Maybe not, but he is one of the better athletes of this draft, as it says right here. So, again, Is this going to completely fix the Browns running back room? Probably not, but I think we got to go with someone here, and so we're going to go with a Jaden Blue here. Now, what we are going to be looking for is a depth linebacker, maybe a tight end too, and then an edge rusher and a defensive tackle. Those are the things we're going to look for here. All right, here at 200, we are going to look straight at edge rusher, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. That's unfortunate. Let's look at defensive tackle. Okay, again, let's just double check what we got. We got Shedeur Sanders at quarterback, Luther Burden, Benjamin Morrison. We got 2 offensive linemen and Wyatt Milum and Cameron Williams, and then we got Jaden Blue to, I guess, be our starter. So I like Junior Tafuna, as I think how you pronounce it. Now, he is 6'3", 308, but he is extremely athletic. So imagine, 2 years down the line, Malik Collins will probably be off the team. Same with Shelby Harris. And then you have a Junior Tafuna and a Mike Hall Jr. I think that's a good defensive tackle duo. Mike Hall is a little bit light. I believe he's probably like 280, 290. And then Junior Tafuna will be, over that 300-pound mark. I like that a lot. So we're going to go with him out of Utah here with the pick 200. Now we're going to look again, depth linebacker, tight end 2, and then probably edge. And we're not going to be able to pick both of those because we only have 2 picks left, I do believe. Yes, so we're going to look first at linebacker. And a guy like Jamin Dumas-Johnson could be an option here. I don't know if he would be our eventual starter, but he would be good depth. And then tight end, we could look to go with maybe an Oronde Gadsden. He's a really good receiving tight end for sure. Only 6'5", 236, so he's definitely not a blocker for anyone wondering. And then last position we can look at is edge rusher. And I just don't like what I see at edge rusher at all. We missed the boat on edge rusher, which is unfortunate, but I think Isaiah McGuire and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka will hold the fort down for now until we get to, another offseason and draft. So we're going to look to go with not defensive tackle. We're going to look to go with, do we go with a Jamin Dumas-Johnson or do we go with an Oronde Gadsden? I'm going to go with a Jamin Dumas-Johnson. I think that's a little bit of a bigger need. Where's linebacker at? We're going to go with Jamin Dumas-Johnson to maybe be our Mike linebacker of the future, or if anything, he will just be a really good depth linebacker for the team and a special teams guy for sure. Now, moving on to our last pick, we're either going to go with an edge rusher or a tight end. So let's see what is on the board and what we can do to help this team a little bit more. All right, we're going to go to edge rusher. Colin Oliver will probably be the only guy I consider here. I think he's worth being drafted. And then we're going to look at, what was the other thing we're going to look at? Tight end. Bryson Nesbitt, Brant Kuithe are both receiving options for sure. Both smaller guys. Okay, so it's either between Brant Kuithe, Bryson Nesbitt, or a Colin Oliver, who was injured most of last season. I think he played, looks like 2 games. But in 2023, 7 sacks, 27 hurries. Like, that's good production for a back end of the 7th round pick. So we're going to go with Colin Oliver. Get some more depth, get some more rotational guys on that edge rushing group, and then maybe get a Bryson Nesbitt or a Brant Kuithe as a priority free agent. So we're going to go with Colin Oliver here. Yep, so neither one of those tight ends went, so hey, maybe the Browns could get one of them 2 guys as a priority undrafted free agent. So now looking at this draft class, I actually really like it. The draft grade is not going to be good since we took Shedeur Sanders at 2nd overall, it's a D-, but we took him to, compete with Kenny Pickett to be that starter day 1, but he is definitely going to be the quarterback of the future, hopefully. Luther Burden slipped to us in the 2nd round. He can probably be our slot receiver, with Cedric Tillman being that X receiver, and then Jerry Jeudy being that Z receiver on the outside. I like that pick a lot. Benjamin Morrison also fell to us with our first pick of the 3rd round. I think he's a really good man coverage corner. He can play outside as long as that hip checks out, and then we can keep Greg Newsome in the slot, or it can be interchangeable. Who knows? That's a really good 3 cornerbacks in my opinion. So whichever formation or whichever spot they want to play him at, go for it. Wyatt Milum listed at tackle, can probably compete with DeJuan Jones to play left tackle, but more likely he'll be a depth guard year 1, and then we'll take over for Joe Petonio in year 2. Cameron Williams, a depth swing tackle most likely, but again, he can compete for DeJuan Jones or Jack Conklin's tackle spot year 1. We traded up with the Ravens to take a Jaden Blue. We need to get a running back in that room. Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong are both solid guys, but we need a guy that's going to eat touches, and I think a guy like Jaden Blue can do that for us next year. And then maybe going forward, we can look for another bigger running back, because we kind of lack a big running back in that room. In the round 6, we want Junior Tafuna to be a rotational defensive tackle year 1, but can be one of the defensive tackles for the future in coming years. Jamin Dumas Johnson will be a really good special teams player. Can be linebacking depth if JOK doesn't come back from that neck injury, or he could eventually be the starter alongside JOK if he works out. But it's a 6th round pick, so no promises there. And then to round out this mock draft, we took Colin Oliver, who is a productive guy for going at 254 overall, coming off of an injury, but if he works out, he does. If not, it was a 7th round pick. Who really cares? So the only thing I'm kind of upset about from this mock draft is that we weren't able to get a good edge rusher to pair alongside Myles Garrett, but we can work on that in the coming years. So overall, I really like this mock draft. Let me know what you guys think, Browns fans especially. Let me know what you guys think of this draft. And as always, I'm the Draft Nerd. There's going to be many more team-specific mock drafts to come, but thanks for watching. I'm out.